phone number to the place in case you ever forget. What's that? All right, we're going to get started. Welcome, everybody, to Laravel Meetup. See a couple new faces. You're a first-timer, right? Well, welcome. Welcome. You're a first-timer? Are you a first-timer? You've been here before? Told you he's been here before. Why do you say he's a first-timer? What?
What?
I'm Eric Van Johnson. Shokum on Twitter.
I'm Eric Van Johnson. Shokum on Twitter.
Why do I bring you these things? We have a couple of meetups. SDPHP, which is the local PHP user group, is kind of our sister group. They meet up on the second Wednesday of the month downtown at Zito Media. They're not meeting up anymore this year. Matter of fact, this is our last meetup this year as well. So we're done until 2017. But first meetup in 2017 will be January 11th, and there is no presenter, so if somebody wants to present, feel free to reach out to me and let me know. I think testing in Laravel might be a good topic, Marcus, to say. When we come back in January, our first meetup is going to be January 25th, and we're going to do a hangout with Adam Wathen. You can thank Marcus for that. He's been setting that up for us. For those that have been attending, we've talked to Taylor in the past, we've talked to Jeffrey Way in the past, so this is rounding out the trilogy of Laravel people here.
If you would like to present but don't know what you want to present, we have a Trello board. If you want to hear something presented, then you can vote up on the Trello board, or you can add an item onto the Trello board. This will allow us to know what you guys are interested in and what we should give presentations on. We have a couple of ways you guys can stay in touch with us. Obviously the meetup, most of you guys know about the meetup. We do have, SDPHP does have a Slack channel you can join. That has a bridge to the IRC channel. We're also in IRC. A lot of us hang out in there. A good majority of us hang out in there all day and have conversations. So you're always welcome to stop in, ask questions. Talk about Westworld.
Talk about Westworld.
Lots of spoilers.
We have Twitter. We're on Twitter, of course, and we have a website that. Do you remember the address to the website? Because you haven't updated it, like
www.sdlog.com.
There you go. Laravel News. You read the first one.
Laracon 2017 is going to be in New York City.
Wonk, wonk, wonk.
So I can't do it.
Huh?
Laracon 2017 will not be in San Diego. It will be in New York City.
Despite our best efforts. We tried.
We really...
Oh, we got excited
we
too.
Tried.
I think he was just toying with my emotions.
He does do that.
Yes. We have history. Huh? 2017. July 25th through the 27th?
Wow, that's...
Or 25, 26. I think you're right. I think it is only 2 days.
They have a website, laracon.com, so if you need any information...
Laracon.us.
Or it links to...
Laracon.us.
One of the things about this one is that there is no official hotel, so you're going to have to arrange your
There's
own.
nothing good about this one. I'm just going to put that out there.
Yeah. I believe you can stay at the Trump Hotel and Casino.
If you've attended a previous Laracon, early bird tickets went on sale today for you. You should have gotten an email. If not, I'm sure it's going to open up soon.
That's weird.
Really?
Yeah.
I wonder if it's just last year, if you just went last year. Because he didn't get an email. He went 2 years ago. Oh, is it only last year? Oh, well, I wouldn't have said anything about it.
Shouldn't have. Generally speaking.
Yeah. Well, that's what I told John. So if any of y'all remember, last year, Taylor actually gave us a pretty good discount to the user group. And I think he gave us a bit better discount than the early bird tickets are this year. So I might have to reach out to him again and see what I can do.
Both of our next items are incorrect.
What do you mean? What?
So Laravel 4222 has been released.
Do we care?
No. And Laravel 5323 has been released, along with the
additional validation helpers, and we're getting information about 5.4 now, which is looking pretty cool. Some interesting things developing for 5.4. So can't wait for 5.4.1 and 5.4.1.2.
So let's back up real quick. The significant thing for 4.2.2.2 to 4.2.2.2 is that that's the older major version of Laravel, and it now supports PHP 7. So if you're still on 4.2 with a project, you can now upgrade your PHP to PHP 7 and still be compatible.
And that is the LTS version.
Nope, 4.1 is the LTS. Oh, I mean 5.1. Yeah, 5.1 is LTS.
There is an LTS version available if you're interested.
You're so good.
You skipped a whole item.
What? What peaks?
Nope.
Nope. You want to do this?
Keep going. You got
For
this.
those of you that don't know, many of you that unfortunately do know, Tom and I do a podcast.
Do.
We do it about weekly. It's called PHP Ugly. We're on SoundCloud, iTunes, yada yada. Check us out.
Huge thank you to our sponsors, Carry.net.
Which is the location you're at right now. They're providing the food, the stream, the facility, all that other stuff. So say thank you, Carry.net.
And especially to William, who took charge on this and did a lot of stuff for us. And huge thank you to you.
Stop kissing up.
I'm leaving, dude. I gotta say my piece.
So since this is our last meetup of 2016, Thomas only has one more meetup. You're going to be here for January, right?
Prospectively, hopefully I will be here for the January meetup.
And then he's moving on.
I'm going to Colorado to spread the love, spread the knowledge. No, I moved back to February.
He's
Toying with everyone.
So yes, quick facilities. If you need to use the restroom, is out the hall, down the hall, to your right there. Make sure you clean up after yourself, all that other stuff. We have
also, thank you to Diego Dev. Diego Dev provides the beverages and employment for half the people attending. So, thank you. And if you need the slides are available at intro.sdlug.com, so no need to copy everything down, just intro.sdlug.com.
Yep.
And we also have the blog, which I'll be contributing more to, I'm sure, once I have more time on my hands.
Sure.
In a different state. With lots of
So we have two talks today. Marcus is going to do a quick talk on testing. Right? And then we've got the VueJS dudes here. They're starting up a meetup that officially starts tomorrow. Tomorrow night. So they're starting a VueJS meetup. They promised never to schedule it to conflict with the Laravel meetup. I think that was the agreement. Yeah, always the day after. So I'm planning on heading down there tomorrow.
Where is it? It's at our company. It's downtown on Broadway and 7th. We can set up the address.
Yeah, give us the information when you're on mic up here, so that we've got everything on the stream too.
Yeah, and the link to it is actually in the meetup for this meetup. Yeah, so if you go to this meetup, yeah, there's a link in there.
And someone maintains the website, so that should have a link on it too.
You ready, Marcus? All right, so we're going to let Marcus do his talk first, and then we'll get into Vue.
A view on Vue.
Vue on Vue.
How many puns? Do you guys have like a pun list for Vue?
This Apple Watch thing doesn't work. It's like unlocking with Apple Watch. And it sucks.
You are liking it?
No, it's like since yesterday now, my laptop's like, oh, I'm unlocking with your watch, and it doesn't. Not yet, but I should. do need help.
There you go.
Okay. Whoa. All right. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing in Laravel. All right. So, disclaimer. I'm probably doing all of this wrong. So anything that you want to point out that is incorrect, please let me know. I love integration tests. A lot of people will say that you're supposed to unit test everything and not really do expensive integration tests, but I really like doing that because it's easier. And I also work alone, so nobody's looking over my shoulder telling me, hey, you're doing this all wrong. So why do I test stuff now? It's because I'm forgetful and I really don't trust myself. It's very easy for me to break things because I work on one part of the application and I totally forgot that it interacts with this other thing. And so I run the tests and then it tells me, hey, you screwed something up. And I don't look or get embarrassed when somebody tells me, hey, that thing broke. It was working, it was broke. It also keeps me focused because a lot of times, I don't know if this happens to anybody else, but I'll start working on a thing and then I go for 45 minutes and then I look up from my screen and I'm like, oh, I kind of went on a tangent. I really was supposed to do this thing, but I lose focus a lot. And Laravel makes it really, really easy. So we all use Laravel here, or we're looking into using it. So since Laravel makes it easy, it's cool to just it's easy to, it's not really that much of an issue to just kind of start doing it. Laravel gives you tons of helpers, and you can use a lot of different things when you're running your tests, like visit pages and do all kinds of stuff, but don't really worry about all that stuff too much because what I've noticed is a lot of these things you'll go, hey, I want to test that I could go here and do this, and you just kind of go and find the helper that does that, and almost always there's something that's already there. Just really quick, the setup, with your default PHP unit file that comes with Laravel, I add the DB connection and DB database, and I set it to the environment files. I set those to SQLite and memory, and it makes my stuff go faster. I've been told there might be a way to make that even faster. If you know what that is, let me know. And then in your test cases, what I like to do is either use database migrations, which means you will, on each test that you're running, Laravel will migrate the database and then tear it down when it's done. Or you could use database transactions, but if you need to see or create your database and do some things before you can actually run your test, you want to add that little helper on the bottom called, or you want to migrate before you do that. As I was writing this out, I was like, hey, I've used both of these before. I don't really know why I picked one or the other. I feel like I read something about it, and one's better. I was looking at older projects as I was going through. I was like, oh, I'll use that one here, and I use this one here.
I only have a guess about why that would be. I think the migrations will run everything, and all your tests use the same database. So if you start creating stuff, they'll stay in that database until you roll it back, maybe.
But
actually, no.
Yeah, I think it
will roll it back.
Yeah.
But the transaction just makes it so it can reverse optimize SQL rather than having to do the expensive migration rollback. It'll just wrap it in a transaction.
That makes sense.
So I think it's faster.
There we go. Yeah, look at that. We're all learning something. Even me, the presenter. So this is the basic test that you get when you install Laravel. They give you that default, and it's going to say, hey, visit the home page and do you see Laravel? That's the default file that loads in the Laravel, or I'm sorry, view that loads in a Laravel installation. Laravel's on the page, so you run the test, and hey, it passes, right? So that's cool. But something that's a little bit more helpful and is more in line with what people will be doing is, I guess from now on we're going to be using some ticketing system that I made up. I was kind of just writing this all out from memory and from the docs, so it might not work, but in spirit it works. It's all pseudocode. You could, yes.
So what you're saying is it's okay. You just test your
I did not test my tests. Actually, was gonna write an application to and then I was like, no, just putting too much time into this. Really quick, we're gonna just send a post request. We're gonna be saving tickets for a ticketing system, and we're just gonna test that the validation works, because maybe validation works when you first create it, and then you change some stuff, and then all of a sudden validation's failing, and you're getting junky stuff in the database. You just want to test to see that it still works, right? So we're going to send a post request to save ticket. At the end there, I'm passing an empty array, so there's no data, and I'm checking to see that, hey, do we have errors in the session now? Because if validation fails, Laravel will push in errors automatically to the session, and we're going to make sure that we redirect back to the home page and assert that no new tickets were created. So that's like a simple test, and now every time you run this test, you'll know my validation still works for this piece of the application. So you could also actually ensure that the data is stored. Here's some data here, and Joe's saying that everything's on fire, and he's freaking out. So we're going to send a post request to save ticket again with that data, and now we're going to say, hey, everything's cool, calm down, and we now know that we have it in the database. So with two simple tests, now we could say, hey, validation's always going to work unless it doesn't, and then we can fix it. And we could always store stuff. Yeah. Okay. I also use it a lot for authentication checks. So just kind of saying like, hey, make sure just random visitors can't see my dashboard. So I say go to the all tickets dashboard and make sure that they were redirected to the login screen. So you set that up, and I think you might need follow redirects in there. I don't know. Now you know that, hey, people can't access the dashboard if they're not welcome. And the opposite of that is actually viewing the dashboard. So I just wanted to introduce like this models factory thing that I think is really cool. You could create an admin user that you could kind of like, okay, so factory there, Laravel, that's a helper for that model. So you've defined that, and I'll show you what that looks like later. So now you can tell Laravel, hey, give me a user that's an admin and persist them, create that user, and now act as that user, view all the tickets, and now we see, hey, we're actually on the home page. The model factory looks like this. You just say, hey, for this model, we're going to use Faker, which is awesome. Return this data that represents a user. What's kind of nice is like I get kind of into applications that I hop into the model factories file a lot just to kind of see like define this model for me very easily, which is really cool. That password thing there, what does that do? Anybody know? That's like an honest question. I really don't know exactly what that's doing. Yeah, like what?
If you pass the password, it sets it. If you don't, it sets it as secret.
Okay. That's okay. That's what I thought. I just wasn't positive. See, okay. Anyways, yeah. So as a state, this is like a newer thing, 5.3 point, one of those little tiny releases. You could actually set states. So we're going to overwrite this past. If a role is a base user, I guess you could say, hey, instead overwrite that as an admin. So then when you say, give me an admin, you have an admin user. If you do checks later to see what their role is, you now have an admin. You can also use it to not persist data, but just to get that model representation and pass it in this way. I use that for, instead of defining my data array and then, I don't know, it makes the test look cleaner to me. You could also pass in a little, I didn't put in the example, but you could pass in attributes to the make and the create function, and it'll overwrite that. So kind of like what we said with the password. Big orange screen. Oh, okay, cool. So this is going to be like a test to see that, just kind of show you what other things I like about testing in Laravel. The end result is that we're going to create a ticket with a type of network. So somebody's saying, hey, the network's down, they selected it from a checkbox or whatever. We're going to send that in to, we're going to post that to the save ticket endpoint, and we're going to make sure that we see it in the database. So this would pass if we made it pass, right? But also what you could do is you could say, hey, make sure this event was fired when this test runs. So at the end of the test, Laravel will actually say, hey, did we fire this event? And if you screwed up something and you didn't fire that after all, Laravel will tell you, hey, you broke something, fix it, right? So that's kind of cool. But also, you could use fakes, and there's also fakes for mail and events and other fun stuff. But you could say, hey, also make sure that the alert network team notification was sent to the network guy, right? And then you could also say, and assert it wasn't sent to the CEO because maybe the CEO started getting a bunch of emails about the network being down. He's like, I'm gonna fire you if I get more of these emails. So now you have a test to make sure you don't get fired, as long as you run them. So that's kind of a lot, but it kind of shows you that it's pretty easy to get into doing tests in Laravel. Holy crap, I went. Anyways, it's pretty easy to get started and test all different parts of the application, so I really like it. A lot of people have asked me before if I do it, and I say yes, and then they ask me about it, so I wanted to talk to you guys about it. It's easy and it's actually kind of fun once you get started. Oh, I have an whole other part, I forgot. You could also test JSON stuff. That's a terrible example. I think I just have one slide of it, but there's a whole way to test APIs around posting and getting and asserting responses and all that fun stuff. So in this case, you just post to the user endpoint, and this is exactly from the docs I just copied and pasted. And you just say like, hey, did we get back that a user was created? Adam Wathen, who's talking to us next week, month, nope, next year. What? Yeah, next year. He posted up this on Twitter the other day that this little function here, which I didn't know existed, kind of just dives in and makes sure that those keys and values are set, but doesn't care about these other ones. Some of the other ones, like you have to have it exact, or your test will fail. Most of the time you don't. Sometimes you don't care. You just want to make sure it was there. Exactly. Yeah. So you just want to say like, hey, was this thing in there? And then if it was, cool. Thomas asked about JavaScript. Sorry, man, I don't do that. I wish I did, but I don't. Probably not. For every time I've like asked about testing JavaScript, people go like, don't. Yeah, that's what I hear, and it's really like.
I actually find it really easy using codeception. So we do codeception with acceptance tests using browser stack, and it's amazingly simple.
Codeception or browser stack?
Browser stack.
Which?
Codeception just hooks up to it. It's Selenium basically but hosted, and it gives you an amazing amount of detail.
There we go. Yep.
It gives you so much detail, like you can actually go into a session and you can see, okay, when I ran this command in my test, what actually happened, and it will show you, okay, we were waiting for this JavaScript element to exist, and once it sees that it finally does, it like also takes a screenshot and includes that in its logs, so you can like go back and see. But the other thing is it takes this video and the entire time that it's rendering it, so you can actually see exactly when it's tested, and it's really nice.
That's pretty cool. I think you did just sign up for the next. Yeah, so there's tools available for JavaScript. And my parting words, dump. That's a great function. Visit a page and then dump out what's actually there, because a lot of times a test will fail and you'll go like, hey, why is this thing not on the page or whatever? And dump it out and you'll see what Laravel sees. Right? What? Yeah, that is true. there's the introduction. You're going to do the first 10 minutes, and then... Laravel Testing Tools is a Chrome extension that you can install. You visit your page, you click record on that extension, and then you say, like, you fill out a form or something. You hit end, and it'll say, visit this page, and type in this to this box, and select this, and then hit submit. Kind of nice if you have, like, a bigger form that you have a lot of detail to fill in. And also, that one was really helpful, which is on, these are links, so I'll give those out later, but it's on the, one of the, it's not Laravel News, it's that other one. Anyways, no, one of the long form one. I'm not sure. The link is there, I can just click it, I suppose, but they kind of went, this article was cool because it went through how they tested their Laravel and Vue application, the different things that they tried, and then eventually they settled on Codeception at the end, so that's cool. Also, Adam, we already said, is going to be doing, or actually no, so he'll be here next month, next year, for a little Q&A, but he has a book coming out, or a video series coming out at the end of the month that looks really, really cool. He has some videos that are coming out around it already, and yeah, follow if you're interested in it. I'm sure that's going to be good. His collections book was really good too. So, any questions? All right, test stuff. Thank you.
Alright, so probably have about a minute while Joel and Mark get set up here. Are you guys both presenting, or are you just
We're gonna switch off.
gonna tag team?
Keep the relationship fresh. Which one of us is supposed to start? You got that guy.
Hey.
When we start the podcasts, just look at his face.
This is
That's just OSX.
it's just OSX. You just hold Option and click on the plus for a little bit, and it'll pop up like that. And then your console will never show up, so you have to do that one first. So you drag this over here. I think Art showed me this originally.
You can just hold down the little green button.
Yeah. And then I switched to I switched to iTerm just because they have the horizontal splitting, so that I could do this setup. Where I can have
You can just hold down to the green.
Hold?
Maximize.
oh, you can just hold it. You have to hold Option.
Nope. Just hold it down.
Guess you just hold it down. Just click the green. Yeah. We've already dropped knowledge.
That's it, folks. That's my presentation. Oh, but there's a whole full screen thing, huh? Well, it's not so nice anymore.
So how comfortable are you guys with JavaScript?
Ooh, yeah. Let's see a show of hands. Who thinks that they're awesome at JavaScript? Yeah. Who thinks they're pretty good? And then who wants to get a lot better? Who hates it? Who hated it a year ago? And then who loves it now? Well, I don't know that I love it, but I don't hate it. Cool. Introductions, real quick. If you guys are ready to get started, I don't know. There might be someone coming back. But my name's Joel, and this is Art. Here. We work at Tipsy Elves. We're a fun apparel company. In fact, I'll show you guys just so you can understand what that means. And
This is not our site, by the way.
yeah.
Looks like your site's got your name on it.
I know. So we're re-platforming on Laravel. We were gunning to get it done by the season because the next 5 weeks are our busiest time of the year. We got very close, but we didn't quite hit our goal, so we're going to launch it next year. This is the Magento site, which is what we're on right now. Yeah, and it's a never-ending pain in our ass. We're migrating to the Google Cloud platform tonight, which is what I'll be doing after this till like 2 a.m., so that'll be fun. We're on a provider called Nexus, and we're going to use Google Cloud Services to host everything, which is what I've learned for the last month, and it's awesome.
Yeah, for the rest of the season. And then we're going to switch over to Laravel backend with the VueJS front end.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things we want to show you guys because, as you know, with SEO and let's like shake some trees and like talk about SEO a little bit, right? One of the main reasons we like to do server-side rendering is because we want to have every page cached, and when Google crawls it, it pulls all the data down and starts popping it into search engines. And now there's talk since 2015 that SPAs now, with the advent of, we have React and Angular and Ember, all those front end,
And
VueJS, sorry. All these front end like single page applications that everything gets spun up before Google gets a chance to. If you just right click on the screen and you do search or source, you'll see a bunch of little curly braces in there, and it's like, what is Google crawling? So Google actually waits for your stuff to kind of render a little bit. Once you get your on-page load, then it crawls the site. So there's a lot of advancements that's happened on Google crawling our websites. But if you're coming from a more conservative side and you're like, I don't know, I don't really trust because Google really doesn't say anything, that's why we have server-side hydration. So with Laravel, as you guys are very familiar with, we're actually pre-rendering everything on Laravel and then sending the HTTP, the HTML, so we can have more confidence that the app is getting crawled. Now with the SPA or VueJS, we're actually making more reactive state, so that you don't have to, every time you submit a form, you have to refresh the page, or if you change it to a different page, you do different things. And then now you can control a lot more things moving around on the page, and makes it look really quick and very responsive. So that's what we're going to be going into today. We're going to be creating a Laravel. Basically, we're going to spin up Laravel App real quick, just like you guys have done probably millions of times already. And we're going to throw VueJS in the front end, and then start doing some JS work. So I'll let Joel jump in there and.
Yeah. Just a little background too. I started with Laravel. PHP was my first everything. So that's what I've been doing for the last two and a half years. And then I started getting heavily into JavaScript. And with our new site, SEO was prime importance because we already had an established website and brand. And we were looking for a framework that could make managing the front end a lot easier because it can get way out of control when you're working on a big site, while still giving us the ability to inject all of our server variables. Yes. Are we integrating our own cart? We're creating everything from scratch. So we built a catalog, a cart, an order system.
So
a full
e-commerce platform.
Yeah.
With Laravel and
Laravel. Yep. That's right.
A little background on me. I'm a full JavaScript guy.
Yep.
And I'm just now learning PHP.
After me twisting his arm to say, come on, man, Laravel's pretty sweet. So to kick us off, what we're going to try and do until we run out of time is we're going to pull up a JS fiddle. Art's going to show you just what Vue is, what the data model binding looks like, what it means to be reactive. And then I'm going to spin up a new Laravel app. We're going to code instead of a PowerPoint, so all the raw errors that come out and that we mess up, we're all going to work through together. If you guys have expertise on why it's showing up, feel free whoever's not presenting will kind of call on you guys, see what we can do. And we'll start with what an inline template looks like, so you can actually render your server variables directly into the Vue component. And then we're going to create a new component called, it's a .vue file, and it all needs data passed in from like an API, and then it will populate all of that stuff. So that's what a non-server rendered piece will look like. So let's start with what Vue is.
All right, so we are going to import Vue into our app, right? So it's just going to be on a Laravel application. We're just going to put in the script tag in there, load up the JS. It's going to load, unload. And all we're really going to do, and you're going to see how simple this is, we're going to create a small div inside of any component in our application, and we're going to assign an ID of app where it can be picked up. So inside of our JavaScript, it could be app.js or like the main JS file, the first JS file that hits. And basically, we're just going to go new Vue after you import it. And then you're going to specify which element on the page that we're going to be targeting, and we're going to put the ID right there. So you can see right here that when I create a new Vue instance, it's going to search our HTML, and it's going to find this right here.
And as a note, you can put in a string, which is just like a selector of any kind. You can also pass in an actual element. That would work as well. Yes?
This is 2.
We're going to be using
Yeah.
Vue 2.0.
Yeah, we're going to use it later. So we spent a lot of time upgrading our current app to Vue 2.0. So
Is anybody currently using Vue right now? I wanted to ask that as well. So we got a couple people using Vue. Are you guys on Vue 1 or have you moved on to Vue 2? Yeah, we're all on Vue 1, aren't we? Pain in the ass.
It was pretty
We have a
tough.
big app, but it gave me a chance to start over on some things. Yeah.
cool. So we're going to actually walk you through on how to use VueJS 2.0 and actually bring in, because Ryan, one of the things of 2.0 is that they got rid of the templating engine. So we have to bring that back, but it's still Vue 2.0, so everything works well.
When you said, yeah.
Wasn't there a couple great script with Vue 2.0?
Yeah, it comes with a
Yeah.
command line tool.
It's
gonna
Vue migration helper, but it's really hard with Laravel. It's going to bring up all kinds of errors because we have because of you're just passing key value or passing data in straight into the HTML, and it's going to tell you like, oh no, instead of interpolating your data, make sure you set it to a vbind and do that. So you're going to get tons of errors. The way I got rid of that was I went through Atom and I just did a regex and found all those and just deleted all those errors. So you make sure you push it out to a log. And if we have time, we'll go through that. So I know if you guys are going to be migrating, I'll give you guys a little quick tour on how to take down the false positives. Okay.
Any other questions? Cool.
Right. So the cool thing now is that our data on our HTML page is now accessible through these curly braces. Now, if you're in a Laravel application, you want to be putting an @ symbol in front of it. But for the sake of just like an SPA, use just regular dual curly brace. So when it renders, you're going to have reactive state where as you change it, the message is going to be populated. It's nothing crazy when it comes to templating. You've seen this a million times, but it's just the simplicity of of just getting yourself set up. So that's just, I mean, in a nutshell, that's what it is. But we're just going to really dive into it, and we're going to create something, from scratch. We're going to delete everything. We're going to go line by line and explain everything.
And the goal of VueJS is that all you have to do is set your data, bind it to your DOM, and you're only trying to change data at that point. You're not selecting through jQuery all these elements, removing them, changing them. It's trying to get you out of the world where you're just constantly trying to update the DOM and you're just playing with your data at that point. So that's the beauty of Vue model binding, which is pretty nice.
Now let's see how easy it is to incorporate into your Laravel applications. And then after that, we're going to go into SPA mode if you guys are interested in just going straight into JavaScript single-page applications.
Cool. So, if you guys are ready, we're going to make a new Laravel app here. Let's go ahead and give it a name. Anyone have a favorite animal in the audience here? Dick butt. Okay. Laravel new. Anyone want to suggest something before I type dick butt? Elephant. All right. So we just ran the Laravel new Elephant, which if you haven't spun it up that way, it's a super nice, quick way to get a Laravel application ready to go. Hopefully I have most of this already cached, but let's see. Beautiful. Let's build something amazing together. So we're going to want to also change into the directory. So we're going to go to Elephant. And the first thing we want to do is there's already some NPM dependencies that we want to install. I'm using Yarn now, which is the new cool tool for you to install all of your dependencies and lock down the versions so everyone on your team has the exact same version across the board, which can cause some headaches on bigger products.
That's confusing. Is npm install?
Yeah, it's the same as npm install. In fact, for bonus points, who can tell me why there's a composer.lock file? Same reason. Go. Yeah, and I've only guessed to this point, so that sounded better than I was going to say it. But I think it also locks in the version so you don't have to recheck all the repositories, which would take a long time. It just says you need these versions, I'll go get them, and every time you run composer update, it remakes that file, but it has to go and reread everything. So the reason why Yarn and probably Composer are so fast is because they have that lock file, so you don't have to go crawl all of the dependencies on everything you're putting in. So Yarn, you just type the word yarn. It's the same as npm install. You type yarn add if you want to add a package. So here we are. We have that going. So let's go ahead and get to the browser preview. So we're going to go ahead and run npm run dev. If you guys are familiar, this is going to go ahead and compile our assets. We could go into a lot of detail on each of these steps, but we're going to skip over some of those finer grains here. So npm run dev, it just took all of our assets, ran them through whatever compilers we needed, and now we are ready to go to elephant.dev. And there we go, we got a Laravel application. Anybody know about Valet? Who doesn't know about Valet? You don't know about Valet? Valet will let you pretty much have any of the folders in your code folder, which is where I have all my projects, will be available as a link and accessible automatically. You just run Valet install, you can go to the docs, very quick steps, and suddenly everything, you don't have to do WAMP or MAMP, whatever I was doing a long time ago, or Homestead, which is the virtual machine, which takes a long time even though it has its advantages. This is the best way where you're like, oh my god, there's my website, beautiful, I didn't touch anything. So we have Laravel up, which is great. And I think what I want to do is let's replace the registration form with a VueJS component. Our goal is going to be, instead of submitting that through a post request and then getting a new page back, we're going to try and XML that bad boy up and get the response that way. I've done a dry run through most of this, but I haven't fully done it, so we're going to do this together. It's going to be a little fun. So to start, we do need to make the auth assets, which Laravel has ready for us to go. So we're going to type artisan make auth, and that's going to bring in some blade files, some controllers, everything you need to get your auth started. So if you do a refresh, magic, you have login and register suddenly showing up. So let's go see what the registration form currently looks like. Ah, there it is, beautiful. Now if I type this in, you know that when you click register, we're going to send off that post request. It's going to do all its gizmo magic, come back down, redirect us somewhere. But who wants to wait around for that slow server? Let's, well, it's going to be as long as it's going to be anyways, but let's go ahead. Yeah, it's going to be much cooler. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my project in Sublime. Beautiful. Let's go ahead and maximize that bad boy. And here we have our elephant. Let me see, maybe I can, wish there was a way to zoom in.
Yeah, you can zoom in on the code part, but you can't zoom in on the tree.
Okay. So the first thing we want to do is let's go look at this HTML. Where's this registration at? We're going to go to our resources. We're going to go to our views, and we have this new auth folder that wasn't there a second ago. And there's this register.blade.php. Awesome. We got a lot going on in here, as you guys probably know. We got our CSRF field here. It looks like we have our 4 inputs. We have name, email, password, and password confirmation. And what we want to do is let's bind each of these inputs to Vue so that once it's set in our JavaScript model, we can manage it at that point. So let's dive in and let's start creating the base that we need for VueJS. Yeah, let's build that up. How's that for you guys? Some of this is going to be basics, and if we have enough time, we'll go deeper into it, but let's figure where we'll start. So let's go ahead and look at our JavaScript assets right here. And you'll see that Laravel already comes with some Vue examples bound in there, which is pretty sweet. It brings in a bootstrapped folder or file where we have Lodash, jQuery, everything we need to really get the front end going here. Unfortunately, we're going to delete all of this. We're going to start from scratch, which is always fun to do. Oh, there goes our beautiful bootstrap. Let's get rid of this stupid example. Nobody likes this example. Too simple. And let's go ahead and kill app.js. So first thing we need to do is we want to bring in Vue because we'd like to use it. So you can do that with a simple import here. And the way to initialize any Vue application is to create a new object with it. And we're going to pass in our configuration, essentially, what our data object is going to be like. You do that with these curly brackets. And let's select the element. App is a good tag, so why don't we start there? And yeah, that's a pretty good place to start. So, can anyone guess the first mistake I've already made? Anybody who's savvy with 2.0? Well,
You just spoke about it just a little while ago. You mentioned it. You just barely touched on it.
so there are now 2 different things you can pull in when you're using Vue 2.0. One that lets you use the inline templates, and one that's not going to have that available, and you have to do everything through. Yeah. And so, what do we pull in here, Art?
So what's going to happen is going to break right now because right now it's pulling in the new package for Vue 2.0. So it's only going to have the rendering engine. It's not going to have the templating engine. So for that, we're going to do Vue/dist/Vue.js. So if you're going to be doing server-side rendering on your apps, you want to make sure that you're using this. You're pulling the Vue.js out from here. It's going to be pre-rendered. It's going to come with the templating engine.
You're starting to get the feeling Vue's definitely moving into single page territory, obviously. I think their ambition is to compete with React. So I think we're going to start to see more and more where like we're the smaller group that is using it, and there's probably going to be some special things outside of the norm. This would be one of those. So you have to bring in a special distribution of Vue.js. And let's go ahead and we're going to throw app on one of these. So let's check to see that we have Vue actually set up on our app here. So we'll give this an ID of app. We'll save it. And we should be good to go if we are running npm, which we're not. So let's do that as well.
So now Vue has a really cool tool. If you guys haven't tried it yet, it's a Chrome extension called Vue DevTools, and that's going to give us real-time, inspection of variables, components. It's going to break it down for you. If you want to do console log tests, you can just click on the component, and it'll be right there pushed into your console. So you can do tests right there. You can run methods, pull properties, and if you take it even further, you can get into Vuex, which is the kind of the Redux, Flux, state management, or that you'll see more commonly in like apps like React.
Much more advanced. Is anyone here using Vuex? Have you guys gotten that far? Vuex is when suddenly you want your state, your data shared across components. Hey, this form needs to know when this form's done and validated. Well, how are you going to pass that data back and forth? This is an advanced topic, but when you get to that stage and you're throwing your head against a wall like we were, and then you're like, oh, I guess now it's time to learn Vuex, which is it's more advanced, and we're not going to be able to touch on it during this topic. So let's take a look here. We have our Vue Chrome developer tool. This is an amazing tool. It lets you inspect your Vue object within the browser, which is pretty sweet. And we just bound Vue to an element, and if we hover over this, we'll see that's the element we bound it to. And when we click on root, we'll see every property that's on our Vue instance. Let's go ahead and add something here. Let's go ahead and add some data just for an example. Yep. Mm-hmm. You could do name. Yeah. That's a great, let's do that right now. This is the beauty.
Yeah, I do that.
Come on, guys. Oh, and let's finish this thing I started. Not on the root. Root's the only one that you don't. Drop it again. All right, let's get rid of all this stuff I was doing earlier. Okay, so Laravel is what? What is Laravel? It's awesome. So is Vue. There we go. Application. Pretty nice, huh? So now we just named it. Here's our data. It's cool. Every piece of data we define on here, we're going to see available in this little helper. That's a great way for you to check stuff. Yeah, great. But we don't want the root to manage all this. We're trying to build a single component. So why don't we set that up? And then within our application, we'll have another lower component here called VueForm. So time to get to the advanced stuff. We're going to go ahead and create a component and do a new file. And we're going to call this right down here. I'm going to call it vue-form.js. This is going to be a new JavaScript file we have set up here. I like to follow a convention where I name the JavaScript file, the SCSS file, and the Blade file all the same, so that I can do Command Spacebar or Command P and pull up all three when I'm working on a single component. So I'll show you what that looks like. We'll go into SAS, do a new file. We'll do underscore VueForm.scss, which is great. And we'll go to our views, and right here in the root, we'll just create a new file called VueForm.blade.php. So we have our three files, and to use them, we're going to start with our Blade file. Why don't we pull out this registration form, starting with form right here. We're going to grab this guy, and we're going to now include it. Form. So we're going to dump that guy in there, and now we can abstract him out into his own little file where we can start messing with some of this. So now we can get rid of this registration, and we have our JavaScript when we're touching on that. If we need to update styles, get that guy open, and of course our HTML. Perfect, and let's just make sure that we're still rendering pretty sweet, which we are. Everything's still working, so we didn't break anything yet, but I'm sure it's coming. So we're going to want to create this new object that's going to be automatically injected into Vue. It's going to take that data, create a new Vue component, and nest it under the application. The way we do that is to set a default export. So whenever you try and import this file, this export default means if you don't say exactly what you're looking for in this file, I'm going to give you this default object. That's what we're going to specify here. So that when we are in our app.js and we say import VueForm from our components /VueForm, you didn't say what you wanted from that file. You could create a bunch of functions. You could import those functions individually, but export default is saying if you're not specifying specifically what you want, this is what I'm going to give you.
I'm just going to give you back this object that we're going to create right now, and we're going to assign it to the name of VueForm. So
Yeah.
we're importing it into.
It took me a long time to understand what the hell even export default meant. I just typed it all the time. So our VueForm, we know we have 4 different data properties we need. We need name, email, password, confirm password. So let's define that on this new little component here. One of the minor caveats is when you're in a subcomponent, you're not on the root layer, you have to create a function for data, which is what this is, that returns the object. I'm not going to go into detail why that is, but it has to do with the reactivity of that object, and you don't want another component messing with the same object as this component. You want a brand new object here. So, yeah, in a sense, it's making it private. Because you could technically loop through this view form and create 6 of them, and if you just return an object, they'll all be pointing to the exact same object, and when one of them updates the data, they're all going to update.
So the import is not returning the class, it's returning instance, like a state.
And then this is where the fun, and he didn't have to do much of this. Switching between PHP and JavaScript every day was awesome. I could just say that. So the when you import view form, and we can console log it if you're curious. Is that what you're curious about? Yeah. So we're gonna log that bad boy out, and we're like, what the hell just came in? And let's set some data real quick while we're here. So no email yet, no name yet, no password, and no, what was it? Password confirmation? You guys remember? Okay, so now we have some just data on this component we want to build out. We have our app.js, and like, what the hell? Okay, I export default something, I bring it in here. What is it? Let's check. Looks like I'm probably have some errors already.
You forgot to put the wrapper for the component, so you didn't name it for an inline template.
Yeah, so we have to say components. Is that right? Is that what you're saying we missed?
Yeah, we need to import the components, and also you need to wrap it too. So if you look at HTML,
Yes, we also need to wrap this bad
so
boy.
we need to reference it, and this is how we reference it. We create a component by referencing the name of the component, and then we pull it in.
Yeah.
That's what we'll see right now.
It's like creating your own HTML elements. So we're going to call this HTML element a view form, and at the bottom we'll close it off here. Sweet. And we're going to specify that this is an inline template, which if we have enough time, we'll get into what a non-inline template is going to look like.
We're going to see that when we look at the SPA example. All those are non-inline templates. All it basically means is that we're opening up that component and we're dumping HTML right inside of it in line with the rest of the application.
Okay, so it looks like we have everything here. We're pulling in our view form. We're going to dump it out so we can see exactly what that is. But the way that we use it and say this should be nested under the root is we're going to register the root's components. We're going to list each one.
So think of it as like children.
Children, yes. And if some of you aren't familiar with the ES6 syntax, which I believe I'm using by not specifying part of this, who's not familiar, who's not using ES6 type stuff yet? We're all good there? Still not there? What's that? Yeah.
It's a pretty smooth transition once you start using it a little more, and especially if you're using VueJS, they really want you to use, and all the examples are in ES6, so it'll be really nice to use. And then basically what this is showing, like normally with an object you have key value pairs, so you have like a key, colon, and then the value. Well, with ES6, basically if the key and the value are the same, you can just merge it into one.
Yeah,
and
so you can
you'll
just
see
do that.
a lot with destructuring inside of functions. If you want to pull in some objects and you want to grab something out of it, you can just destructure it. And we might run into some examples of that. If we come into that occasion, we'll make sure to put that in there.
So we've created this supposed component, and we need to register that it exists and that it should be under this guy. So we plug them in right there. And now hopefully we don't have too many more problems. Let's find out by canceling this and just running it again. Looks like it says can't resolve components view form because I forgot the relative dot there. So all the fun errors. So it's saying look in the same directory, go to components, import view form. I'm giving out $10 if you catch mistakes. I'm kidding. He's actually giving out the $10. Cool, so here we go, no errors, and we have something here in our console log. Oh, it looks like the object, it has a few more things you can see on it, but this is an object. It has data. It's a function. And let's go ahead and assign that as a little variable if you guys know about that guy. Yeah, you can right click on anything in the console, set it as a variable, and now you can play with it. And now you can dump that out. Oh my god, our function returns the object we created. This is magic. So it's a very simple thing that we just exported. It is just an object.
So how else can we do that using the Vue DevTools?
The other way that we can do it is we can click on View Form, and anything that you click is automatically assigned to the variable $VM0. So now we can clear this out, and we can say VM0 is our view component. That's so great. And this is new with 2.0, this automatic assignment. It used to be a link here that you could click and say, send this to the console, I want to mess around with it. So,
it automatically binds it for you, which is nice.
but you're like, wait, the object that temp1 is just a normal object, and you export this guy and it's a view component. That's what the registration did. It crawled the object and did the view magic and made it a view object, which means it's reactive, it has a bunch of functions on it, and we're going to get into what those are. Yes.
It's just a data set.
Yeah, it's just a data set.
We can add more. We can add methods to it. We can add computed properties to it. There's a lot more to this object that can be, expanded into.
His mind is twisting. I like it.
But it's not even an object. In this instance, it's not even an object. It's just an object.
Let's say let view component. So we're creating this new object. It's a very simple object. It has a property. It has a function called data, which if we're not using ES6. Equal, sorry. And if we could try and switch to a color plugin. Well, okay, so it's just a normal object. On that object, we created a function called data. If you executed that function, you're going to get back an object, which is our data, which is pretty sweet. I like ES6 because you type less.
This is kind of like a singleton.
It's kind of like that.
All the same component multiple times, you'll get the same instance of the object multiple times.
Yeah, if any time you, let's say this was, let's try this, export default an object, and we'll say data true. I'm pretty sure if you import this, everywhere you import it all points to the same object, and you can get into some messy territory. So it's not like a singleton in that. Oh, I mean, it is like a singleton. It is exactly like a singleton. I reversed that.
More like a static.
Yeah. So it's the same as saying view component. That's kind of what we're doing. We shortcut it by saying I don't want to name it. I just want to export it. Bada bing, bada boom.
And we name it when we import it.
Yes.
That's how we use it.
We're naming it right here. We're saying this is what I want to call this object. This is how I want to use it. And then we register it as a component. So when Vue is booting up and it's starting to go and it's like, cool, what am I binding to? App, got it. Do I have any components? I got Vue form. It crawls that object and it's like, boom, I'm going to make you magical Vue goodness. That's what it does. So we go over here and we see that we have this Vue form. It has all of email, name, password confirmation, but nothing's changing. The magic of Vue is as you type in the DOM, it should update the data. If you update the data, it should update the DOM, but we haven't registered that that should be happening. So that's the next step. We're going to go over to our blade file, and we're going to do a property called vModel. This means bind this so that if the data changes, update this element, but if this element changes, update the data. And the way that this looks is vModel, like that. So it's one more property you're going to add onto your HTML, and you're going to say, so what model am I binding to? Well, this one is name. So vModel is going to reference your data object that you're returning. So if you say name, it'll look for name. It won't look for any of these parent things, like if you did data, and you thought like, oh, is this going to reference like the view stuff? It doesn't. It references things nested within data. So we say, cool, I want this name property to be bound in that beautiful view way. Super simple. I love it. Everywhere else that we have a name attribute, let's just select them all. Too many, just 3 of them. So I'm doing Command D just to select everything like that. We're going to go ahead and copy these guys. Go over, type V model. Oh, the magic of Sublime, I love it. And paste them all in. So now we have vModel name, vModel email, vModel password, and vModel password confirmation. So in theory, everything should be bound. If we update those inputs, we should see our data updating. Let's find out. We'll do a quick refresh here. And oh my gosh, look at that. That's awesome. We're creating this data object we can send using Ajax if you want through jQuery, or you can pull in a library called Axios, which does HTTP requests for you. That's what we're going to do here. So now we have, cool, we can create this data object, which is what I need because I want to send that off to Laravel and get back the response. So do blue999. Oh, you got me. You got my AOL password from when I was 15. This is the default they gave me. I've used it on everything I don't care about since. So, don't hack my AOL account. I hear they still have it. Like, your email's still there. Even though college, they delete that thing within a month, but AOL keeps it for the rest of your life. So, kudos to them. Cool. So, we have our data object. So, now we want to send that off. So, let's add in a package called Axios. And if you haven't seen Axios, we can go to Axios GitHub. And you'll see it has a very nice API, very basic. Gives you .get, .post, .delete, all those methods you want to send. You plug in the URL that you want to send it to. You could add a comma to a post request. Send in the data, which we have nice and prepped and ready to go. And then we're going to use promises, which is kind of an advanced JavaScript object, but very cool way to manage asynchronous code. And we're going to catch when that response comes back. And for our sake, we're just going to console log that response, see what happens. Even I don't know right now.
Why are you using this as opposed to view resources?
You could totally use view resource. Good to go. Evan released a blog article saying that he wasn't going to use view resource within the family of Vue. I think early on when he started, he was like, everyone's excited. Someone made a package, Vue resource. It's a great package, and it's fine to keep using it. He's like, come under the umbrella of what Vue is. He probably did that for a few things. But I think as they're saying their long-term vision, they're like, our scope is really Vue model binding, DOM binding, and data. And we don't want to have things, it can continue to be part of Vue, a separate part of Vue. We just don't want to overextend ourselves, I think. And so he said, really, you should use whatever library you want. You don't need to bind this into Vue. I'm going to show you how you just pull in Axios and do it exactly the same way. And so that was all. And so he recommended Axios. I looked at it. I said, great. These guys are probably maintaining their package better than the Vue resource guy who touches it every once in a while because it's like a side thing. So switch to Axios because you should probably use packages that are better maintained than other ones. And they do the exact same thing. So Axios will probably just be around forever instead of Vue resource. Why not? So let's use Axios. We're just going to yarn add it. Add Axios. I didn't say add. I guess when you just say it, it doesn't do it. All right, keep the tally up. $10 for him. Thank you to our sponsors who's supporting the $10 bug fee. Cool. Axios is added. Fantastic. So we know we're going to need it. So let's import it, which is, again, very simple. We're going to import Axios from Axios. So the way imports work is it checks locally to see if it's in the same directory. If it can't find it, it crawls all the way back to node modules, which is where we installed everything, just like your vendor directory. PHP, and it'll eventually look there to see if it can find it. So
So you imported that into the component, not the root. Was there a reason for that?
It's not scoped at that level.
yeah, right now we're not going to use it in the root. We're going to use it in the component.
Okay.
It doesn't cascade down. So it's going to be only available to this JS file.
Yes. So so when you use it here, you can only use it here. This isn't a global thing. This doesn't make it global because you imported it. It is only available in this component. And it's a lot like the, using packages in PHP. You use it, it's available in that file, and that's it. So that's what's going on here.
It only pulls it in once.
Yeah.
And in fact, it won't even pull it if you're not using it on that route. So if you have different routes, and it's just like a server-side rendered page, if you have it in your JS file, because of Webpack is not going to actually pull it in for you. So if you're not using it, it's not going to cause any issue.
Yeah. And it only pulls it in one. So basically, it used to be you'd import a thing by adding a script, jQuery to your page. It is now window.jQuery, and everyone can use it, and anyone can overwrite it, and that sucks. So with Webpack, it's basically like, give me all of your dependencies. I'm going to scope them in this thing, and then ask me for them, and I'll give them to you. And they're not on the window. If you want them on the window, there's a way to do that with Webpack. So it stops the global pollution, which is pretty sweet. And then when you import it, it's importing the same one every time. It's not like duplicating that load, or if you're worried about that. This is ES6. So we use Babel to compile it to JavaScript 2015. Laravel Elixir out of the box does that, probably. It must be, because it's not broken right now. So
You're doing Elixir. Is this getting compiled every time
every time
you?
I save, which you'll see.
So you have a watch on that file.
Yeah. Yeah, when you run npm run dev, it is going to check your package.json for your scripts, and you can do production, which will run gulp with a production flag, dev, gulp watch, package file. It's not valid. Package.json is your composer.json file for JavaScript. So this is where every time you're adding a library, it's saying, I need this, I want this version. When you run npm install, it looks at this, does everything. So this is our JavaScript composer file. Yeah. Package.json. Pretty cool. So then we import Axios from this giant directory where you'll see Axios and everything dependent on it, which is kind of crazy. Like if you're ever looking for something in here, it sucks. It's not fun. There it is, Axios. It's going to look, I think it even looks at this and decides like when people ask for me what file, I don't know. There's lots of stuff that we could get into. But node modules is like vendor. Package.json is like composer.json if you guys are familiar. 5.3. We started on 5.1 or 5.2. Yeah, and 5.3 comes with a new version of Elixir that does like some Webpack stuff. And yeah, a lot of effort to stay on top of everything. So, 1 year ago.
You can do it.
Yeah, we can all do it. But this is all I've been doing for 1 year. So this and solely this. Well, and then the year before that I was doing Laravel. So it was like learning Laravel. Oh, I guess I have to be the JavaScript guy. And we hired him, and I was like, cool, he'll know how to do everything. He's like, I've never used VueJS. So we both learned it. We like co-piloted the entire app. Probably spent months doing that. But then we were both like, now we both know it very well. We've had to troubleshoot every problem. So, and after this, if you guys have problems, we could start like a Slack chat. You guys can question us when you run into like anything on your projects, because I'm sure at this point Well, I'm not saying I'll respond. I'm saying there will be a channel for you to air it out, and I'll just throw gifts at you like, not today. It's not happening. So, so we're gonna keep going unless you got another one. Feel free to ask.
I was going to ask Jesus. I mean, at this point,
We could be here for hours.
at this
though.
point, you're undoing. Which one are we redoing?
Yes. Well, we're not undoing the form. If we go to our Blade file, we haven't undone it yet. We wrapped it in something to make it accessible from Vue, to make it accessible from. Let's see. So that we can see it right here. So if we look at this guy, VM0 dot $element, and you're like, what? This thing right here is bound to an element, and guess what? It's the form element that it's wrapped in.
So it's not like immediately faster or vastly superior, but now you can access it to do things.
Yeah, the idea is separation of like concerns. Like stop trying to mess with the DOM directly and get into that chaos that can eventually come from trying to manage all that, and try and manage this view object. As this view object changes, all of this will change.
Registration forms, not something you quite really do. A lot of years.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's basically, we're just going to make the whole Ajax process really simple.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what we're going to do. I'll show you.
Yeah. So then we go back in and we see we have our data. It's bound. If I type things in here, I get this object. So now we want to send it off. How do we do that? We create methods. This is another property that Vue's going to look for. Methods. This is where you define all your functions to do work. So we want to register user. So type that in there. And we're like, cool, how do we register user? Well, we want to send a post request, axios.post. We know we want to send it to $1 million question, where does the auth go? What route? Anyone know from Laravel?
Let's check the action.
No $1 million for any of you guys.
Except me.
It sends it to a post to /register. So you get $1 million. So we're going to send a post to /register. The form sends the data. We're going to send the data. This.data. So whenever you reference this, it's always going to be relative to the Vue instance.
This is not going to work, right?
Is this not going to work?
Are you going to send data? Because it's looking inside of data.
Oh yeah, of course. So I want to send a big object that is email this.email. Sorry, so then that would have been confusing. So when you do this.email, this.whatever, it references your data, not the
So it's
actual
looking inside
object.
of the data to find that. And you can also make a computed property that you can create this object, and it's going to spit that object out.
Yeah.
So that's another thing we can look into if you have time.
Yeah. So you can imagine we would do all of the properties here and send that data object up. Another fast way to, I like to create what's called a computed property. This is another configuration option where it says, I want a payload. So, you create a function, you say, whenever I ask for payload, give me, return, the object that we want, which is email this.email.
And if this still doesn't make any sense, we're going to look at it in the Vue DevTools, and you're going to see how amazing computed properties are.
Yeah. So what a computed property does is now you can access this payload like you were doing for your data, and it will grab it from here, execute that function, and return whatever you had. So now you can do magical data, computed properties, which I'm trying to think of what.
Will it show?
Yeah. Show. No, I was trying to think of the PHP equivalent, so just telling some of the other.
Like that,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, like on Laravel, you can do get full name attribute, right? It's just like that, and then suddenly you can run this dot full name, and you get it. It's exactly like that. It's magic, and it is a method. So yes, it is a magic method.
We can name it magic too.
So now we go over here, and we're like, awesome. What else do we have on this now? We have.
Computed object or computed variable that has an object that automatically updates as you
Yeah.
create it.
And everything is bound, which is the best part of this. So computed, anything that you reference in here, it's going to keep an eye on, and if those things change, this thing changes. And Vue's filled with this, so you're constantly just binding things up, and then you don't have to like recheck stuff, go get it.
Well, that's only because we're trying to make a helper function that's going to create this payload object for us, so we don't have to make it inside of the. So we just want to show you how it works, but you could have just as easily just dumped it into the Axios.
Yeah. There are no reflection classes. I don't think JavaScript does that. So you could have just as easily dumped it in here, and we're just kind of.
Well, no, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just,
And usually I'll do this not because how is this better? I just made like it feels like more code. Sometimes you're like, oh, I want to like title case the email before it goes up. I want to do this, that, and the other. I'll do it in my payload and do modifications.
so why not this stuff data? Those things.
That's what I did. I don't need to space my data set without the set.
Mm-hmm.
So I can say this dot whatever data set.
Yeah.
So this is
Same thing. This is my.
yeah. So if you think of export default, it's going to check inside of this is the context of this, but it's not going to look at data. It's not going to look at compute. It's not going to look at methods. It's going to look inside of those objects. So if you do this dot payload, this dot email, this dot register user, those are all flattened down into like a component of lists or an object of.
And I think I might know how you're thinking about it. When I say this dot email, what do you think I'm gonna get in your mind? Probably this, right?
This is a property of the data object, so this is the data object.
Yes, because that doesn't happen. So I could see how you would say,
This happens late.
yeah, this happens once Vue's crawled it and turned it into magic.
So it flattens it. So you don't. It's not exactly happening here.
This turns into, it just keeps it as a function. So every time, it's like a get, imagine.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're saying payload, it's going to return that function context from there.
You gotta think
Yeah.
that this object here is gonna get run through Vue before it actually does anything with it.
So it's execing it.
And the unfortunate truth is, I think when you first learn Vue, it's like, do what it says to do, and then you learn how the hell is it even doing this? Which would be, you need to know JavaScript because it crawls this, it uses object.assign, it does getters and setters on everything. It uses bind to bind the context of this. If you're familiar with JavaScript, this can refer to who knows what, depending on what you've done to it. So Vue makes this refer to something specific, which is data or computed. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
So
You just think of it, just flattens at one level.
yeah, so it's intense. JavaScript is intense. Kind of gets you into a world of hiring art because it's a painful road. But if you have to have a big app, you got to get to this stage because yeah.
No, it's, I mean, I'll show you my website right now. Because I said we should use Vue.
Mm.
My bosses said, well, we'll start with the JavaScript for this. I said, okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
and then
15
complexity happened.
15-second runtime.
Yeah. Oh, that's not good. It's not good at all.
That's better than
So cool. We'll keep going. And then what's our time slot? I can just keep going for a while.
anyone who needs to read the paper that is
All right. So this is going to return a promise, which is a cool object where you can chain .then and basically say, do this when it's done. When it comes back, it's an asynchronous request. So we're going to get a response back in a function. This is ES6, how you can write a function. It should be the same as saying, when I come back, execute this function. We're going to pass in a response. So I'm going to do it the way I like to do it. And we're going to console.debug it. We're going to look at it.
That's the ES6. That's how you pass in the functions. So.
How culturally relevant is ES6 right now? I'm
It's
using
huge.
S4.
All the new frameworks have it.
So if I use
Sorry.
ES5, someone's going to call me out as an old guy.
An old fogey.
Yeah.
Although I work for both.
But I can tell you, it takes, if you have 2 days, I feel like that was, because I felt the same way. I was on ES5, I'd already written a bunch of stuff, and I'm like, fuck, ES6 now? Like, god damn it. Like, how much do I have to learn? I just came into JavaScript, and even while I'm learning, things are changing.
Well, that's where I'm at. I'm not on ES5. I'm on JavaScript.
Right.
The transition is not that hard. I mean,
It takes 2
it
days.
takes a couple. Yes. I mean, you have to use Babel. You have to transpile.
You can transpile it down. And basically one day it won't.
Oh, right, because it's ES. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But if you don't use compile tools, you probably can't do a lot of things in JavaScript right now. So it's the nature of the beast. So we're back to our cool little Axios post. We're going to send it to register. We're going to pass in this little data object. It's going to go up to Laravel where we feel comfortable again, where we feel safe. And then it's going to come back down into JavaScript where it's scary again. And we're going to get this whole response object back. It's probably going to have a status code, a body, everything that would come back normally. Well, I don't know what Laravel returns right now, because now they have separate API and web. Yeah. Yeah. And so Axios lets you set configurations, so you can set headers that say, give me JSON back, and I think Laravel checks for that, and we'll send that to you if that's what it's asking for. So, we'll see what happens if we don't specify that.
So when an Ajax, you get an Ajax response, you really get three things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You get your roll results, which is XHR, status.
You get 3 arguments back.
Yeah.
This one gives you, Axios gives you 1 argument. It's an object, and it's the full response object, which will have response.status, response.body, which will be the actual body.
So it's kind of like the stack. But
Yeah.
it's stack object.
And you're wondering, like, well, what if something goes wrong? There's no error object in there. That's promise. I'll let you then chain on the catch. So here we'll get the response if there was an error, and then we'll also, because this is more likely to happen than the other one.
Does it define error by the response code from the browser, or does it define an error?
It's going to return the whole response error.
Yeah. Axios, if it's not a 400, then it will, or 200, then it will throw a dot catch. And you can, I think, set stuff like that. Or maybe a 301, I don't know. But it handles basically the codes that are bad, it's going to try and catch probably. Yeah.
So this function operates completely asynchronously, so it's not going to block anything. So if you're not familiar with async operations, it's a
But
perfect example.
the then catch operates synchronously.
It-
waits for a response from
Yeah, it waits for a response, and
But
if
it's
it's
a non-
successful, it will execute this function we just defined. This guy right here is a function. And if it has a bad error code, it's going to execute this function instead.
Okay, and so this is a property of the Axios
Mm.
script.
And it's really a property, it's the promise object, which you can Google and see what. And that's a new object that some browsers don't have. You have to shim it.
And by
Usually.
some browsers don't have it. You were talking IEA.
Yeah. Someone else did have it. I don't think Selenium had it or something. I was trying to do tests and it didn't have it. I had to bring in the promise shim so that it could have it.
Okay, so it's part of ES6.
It's part of JavaScript.
Yeah, I don't know when it came out, but it's part of JavaScript. The promise object is a native object.
As opposed to like how we used to have to do jQuery.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've used jQuery defer in the past.
Yeah, 'cause I'm used to jQuery success.
Yeah, it's more native now.
Promises are fun.
Use
It's a much nicer way. It gets you away from the nesting hell of like going and checking, which. What's that? What does always do? Because I didn't use jQuery before.
You have your success, your fail, and always. And whether you
Always,
fail or succeed, it's gonna run always.
I don't think so. It's just then and catch. And some weird things can happen with catch that I haven't liked, where I'll be higher up in the code, or no, lower in the code, and the catch will like hit something, or something will go wrong after right here. Like I'll run a function, something will go wrong there, and it'll point in the wrong place. I can't find it. It sucks. It's not fun. JavaScript errors suck. I still don't. If anyone has a way to make JavaScript errors not suck, I want to hear it, because I have no idea. Yeah, don't write JavaScript. Who feels overwhelmed with JavaScript from this? Anyone? Overwhelmed? Kind of overwhelmed? Really overwhelmed? Yeah, conceptually you're like, it's there, but I don't write JavaScript, so I don't know what this means. Sorry about the language chat analysis.
I had an input that needed an on-click action, which called an Ajax method, which on success executed a closure. And the closure had reference this dot data or whatever the input was, and I was like, wait a second, is this the closure, or is this the Ajax, or is this?
What is this?
It's gonna be the closure, Tony. You have to do a that.
It is.
Before you set up, you do a var that equals this, you do your Ajax call.
Yeah, I hate that. Oh, that's the worst.
This doesn't refer to your closure.
And so you can run .bind on a function, or I mean, you guys know.
Or use ES6.
Or use ES6.
Or get the parents.
So with ES6, if you write this function, this will be bound to the parent scope. This will be parent scope and not, not on .post.
Not of the function itself.
Yeah.
Or the closure that you're running.
So that you don't have to do var.that equals this. And
You're lucky if your parent scope is on the page you're currently in.
this is why Vue becomes awesome, because you're like, Vue takes care of a lot of what you are hating when you code every day.
What's the parent though? You said the then?
This will always refer, or not always, because you can break it. It will refer to the Vue component itself, which is this guy right here. So if you're ever unsure, it's this. This is this, and you can grab it and you can run everything. If you're ever like, what is this? Let's do payload. We got back. So. Yeah, it's okay. So we're going to move through, because now we want to take action on our form. So now we have the method, and we're like, cool, when I click submit, I want this function to get started. So we go over to our blade, and we say short syntax at submit. We want to prevent the default submission, because we don't want that to go forward. That would be a pain in the butt. Instead, we're going to do $1 million question. What did I call it? Register user. I get $1 million. So this right here is going to say on submit event.prevent default, if you've had to write that 100 times, execute this function. So you can do at click, at submit. It has most of those DOM bindings at blur, at change. You can pretty much find it, and you can put this anywhere on any of these elements. So you could do on input, you could put at blur, validate email, and you can do that if you wanted to. So at submit.prevent, and let's register the user.
You erase a lot of other stuff too.
What other stuff?
The action of the method, you can erase it.
Well, let's leave it there just to see what happens. So, cool. We should pretty much be able to blue. Oh, it didn't work because I didn't refresh it. Now I'm posting. Alright. What do you guys think is going to happen?
Erase the console.
Oh yeah, that's true. I don't even know. Let's see. Do I have a local database ready for font values. No, don't. So that's the beauty of it. Is we go to our SQL Pro, we go to our local Maria database, we add on Elephant, or was it Dickbutt? And we go back to our environment configuration and we say Elephant. And who knows what do you guys think is going to work? Hey, it worked. We got database connection. That's exciting. So let's try again. All right, 422. Nice. Let's see, what didn't I type right? Who knows? So we can click that. We can open it up in our little network preview. We're like, oh, here's when I sent that request. That was magical. Slide it over, do a preview. Oh, JSON response. Password has to be at least 6 characters. Now we could catch this and display errors, which I won't drag you through this time, but that's what you would do during that catch. You would do catch response. Response.status equals 422, set an errors object, and then bind that to the DOM, show those errors when they exist. And so if you've been hopefully following along, you can see where we get. So now we try blue 1, 2, 3. We try again. Whoa, it worked. It actually worked. I didn't know. I haven't gotten this far. So it looks like we got back an actual page. Or who knows? Where? Oh, where's that? What do we do? Ah, beautiful. Thank you. And also a nifty trick is if you don't want to keep clicking a button, or your ability to do that was an annoying process, you can replay XHR by right-clicking on it, which is nice. Cool. So we're getting... Yeah, so it doesn't think you want JSON. It thinks it's a normal flow. What's that? It won't?
Yeah, it didn't actually pop another object.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, we learned something.
at some point it was useful. I don't remember what I was going through. But I was thankful it was there. Cool. So, well, we're live coding, so let's go ahead and modify Axios. And let's go look at those docs and find out how we do headers. And it looks like it's right here. So, copy this guy. We will do this. We'll change this to instance. So, we're going to create a new instance of Axios. So we're going to actually set headers. Now, later on, you're probably going to pull this out of this component. You're going to, bootstrap this, which is nice to do. And then import your bootstrapped Axios into your components rather than the raw one that hasn't been configured. So we'll get rid of these, and we'll set some headers. And who knows what the headers are off the bat in the title case? Anyone? Except? Something like that? Anyone? Yeah, it's something. Content type? Nobody? Class does not get $1 million today. Content type? I usually do both. I think that'll do it. Is it content space type? Like that? All right. Thanks, guys. Co-programming, all of us together. Yes, and so we'll probably set that as a meta tag instead. And in this, we'll grab it and set it. So normally you would do, anyone know what the meta tag header needs to be? Yeah, you can pass the token through a header. And so what does the header need to be called? Who's got the... I know. But we all got to work together. Well, since no one brought their laptops, we'll go to Laravel. We'll go to CSRF. Click on it. We'll go to this guy. So we'll grab this. Beautiful. Cool. So then we need to bring in jQuery, which I just like to. You could import it, but I don't care right now. So we're just gonna make it global. Do minified, and we'll grab this guy. We'll go back to our resources, views, layouts, app. Perfect. Right down here, we will add jQuery. Might work. Anyone know why it won't? About to find out together. So, let's see what happens. I didn't get any errors. I'm logged in. That sucks. Everything's working as it should. Only, except for the jQuery part. Oh, we have to send a post now to log out, I think, so I can't even log out. Because I think it's all bounded. It's all Vue stuff that I deleted. Yeah, but we deleted, that's Vue now, I think, and we deleted the whole Bootstrap. Yeah, I got rid of Vue entirely, which, it used to not be wrapped, it used to be Bootstrap jQuery, and I think it's probably Vue now. Maybe, I don't know. So, yeah, where are we storing the session right now? Yeah, let's just kill the
watch thing.
Let's go to our local store cookies. Here we go. Here we go. Boop, boop. All right, back in action. Yeah. All right, so now we go back. It's gonna log us in again. But if we're lucky, browser testing. This is why you do test-driven development. So you don't want to do this 13 times. What's gonna happen? Anyone? Sounds like I did not do a good password again. Probably also duplicate. I wasn't recording. The laugh. Just add a plus? Also fast. All right, I think we got. It did not work. So I think with Laravel's new separation of the API stuff, it doesn't do the auto check anymore. You actually have to go to an API. The API is wrapped in the checkers for that kind of stuff. And if you hit a web route, it's probably not. It's going to send you back a web response. If you guys are familiar with 5.3. Yeah. So your routes are now here, and web is going to assume you're on the web, and that's what we're hitting. So, as you can imagine, we would have gotten back a JSON response in a better world. But I think that covers the end of the binding. So you get a basic example of how you would take a form, bind it to data, and then send the data off. Chapter 2. He drinks water. Let's take a 5-minute break. Questions, concerns, anger, hatred for JavaScript.
This job, yeah, what version? ES5? 2016?
I guess what's the destroy all software topics? I suggest everybody check these out. If you go to destroyallsoftware.com, go to his talks section. This guy has some coverage of JavaScript, some example of stuff. One of my favorite is a 3-minute video called Whack, which talks about some of the type hinting stuff and funsies with JavaScript and how it drives you insane.
That's hilarious.
We have GIMP running inside of it, and
All day.
yeah. And like how as a JS folks said how got this really cool thing called JavaScript, which is this language that was written in I think like 10 days in 2004, and but how crazy advanced it has become. So
Yeah.
the guy, storyallsoftware.com, really good stuff.
Yeah. My favorite read whenever I need to be reassured is to go to your framework/language sucks. And whenever I think JavaScript sucks, I read that plus the PHP one plus all of them, and I'm like, you'll never be happy. Learning a new language sucks because it's not the language you. Yeah, I like learning new languages. Oh, learning your second language sucks. How about that? The second language you ever learn, it's because you're like, I knew one, that was hard. Now I have to learn a second one, and it's not the first one. This sucks. You should be. That's the third language. The third language is
I was
beautiful.
really excited with my second language. I started off with Visual Basic Script.
Nice. Yeah.
That's intense.
We're both new. We're just self-taught guys who started a couple years ago. They're just doing stuff. Do you guys want more? You want to keep going? It's up to you guys. I don't know if I've scared you or helped you.
Is there anything else you guys want to see? What sounds interesting to you right now? Because we're at a point that we can take it off in a different direction.
Yeah. I gotta go migrate some servers. How long does this run? 7 to 10? 7 to whatever. Yeah, I only want to keep going if there's interest. That's my biggest question right now, is if all this does is scare you from JavaScript, it's not a positive experience. We can make a Slack channel. I have a Slack that we can use. And yeah, send us questions, why not?
Yeah.
We'll do our best to jump in while we're working. Like I said, we'll probably know why the thing's not working, especially in the beginning. There's so many just things that you miss. You leave off and you're like,
Sure.
yeah, can you talk about it?
I'm trying to think. Do you have the? You have it in code, right? So I'm going to pull up two repos. I'm going to pull up the old repo and the new repo, and I'm going to show you kind of the things that I changed a little bit.
If you see sensitive keys, write them down.
Oh, I think we're broadcasting actually.
Oh yeah, we are broadcasting.
Yeah, don't do it. That's all right.
Okay, so it's going to.
Just pull up pages.
Yeah, let's get on the stream and do it, just because I don't want it to actually show up. I've already showed too much. They've seen my file structure.
Yeah.
They know you're available. I was going to say they know you're available.
Yeah.